Hi, Tori. So I thought your descriptive piece was excellent. Your use of status details, sensory details, scientific details, artistic details, you really used it all to really paint a picture of life in Riley. And I really got what you were going for, trying to portray it as this picturesque, small town, Americana place. And you did that very well. You would use the smallest details. I really loved the dairy farm milking twice a day. That seems kind of random, but in the overall, view of the story, that's a perfect detail to include because it really paints that picture, and that's what you were going for. So I think you did an excellent job really establishing the scene. Your credibility is undeniable. Obviously, you've been to Riley several times, you've driven through there, you know about the road construction, you know where all the action is, you know about the elementary school, you know about it. And so I never doubted for a second that you had been there and this was something you had really researched and saw firsthand. So you use more than anything those details, which is a good thing because like I said, they really show your authority and that you know what you're talking about. Early in the story, I think you use a couple similes, but it really, as the narrative moved on, kind of that petered out and it was mostly just relying on your details, which is fine, but I think there are some opportunities to use some, I talk a lot about similes in my written critique just because that's what you used in your story, but really any sort of other figure of speech just to kind of create more of an image in the reader's mind. Not that your details don't do that, because they do, but at that point, it's really more like the reader is listening to your voice in their head. And I think if you use some figures of speech, it opens up some new opportunities for the reader to kind of personalize the vision in their mind and see the narrative in their own way. So I think, maybe at the fire station, there's some, when you're describing what the fire station looks like and everything like that, there are some opportunities to play with the language and maybe go beyond just the status and sensory details, which are very good, but opening up some more descriptive language to really bring the reader in. So the one thing I thought that maybe could really enhance the story is establishing earlier on that the fire station is the end goal. Because, when you read the narrative as a whole, you obviously get that, that's your point, and knowing that that's your project proposal as a whole, I get that. But a reader coming in, it takes a little while for you to get to the fire station. And not that your lead up to the fire station is bad. I mean, you do a very good job of describing the scenery on the drive in. But I just think, maybe in one of the first opening paragraphs when you're talking about traffic, you could establish, we're going to the fire station, just because that is the whole subject of your project. And so I think establishing that earlier on would help. And with that, I didn't really go into this in my written critique, but you do mention your father, who I know you said was kind of your inspiration to write this story, but you mention him at the very end, and then the piece is kind of done. Obviously this was description and not characterization, so you don't need to, go into more detail about your father or flesh him out. That's not necessary. But I think if you're going to include him, which you should, because like I said, that he is kind of the main character, so I think it's good to include him. I think he needs to be more of a presence in the story. So maybe, earlier on, like I suggested, establishing that you're going to the fire station, maybe just establish that your father is there, just so the readers have in their mind there's a goal, an end place they're trying to get to, and there's also a person they want to see, just to add some more, context to the whole point of the narrative. And like I said, this isn't characterization, so there's no reason to really flesh out the details about your father and his life, but just having him there as a presence, I think, would strengthen the narrative because he was the inspiration for the story as a whole. So even though this isn't the whole piece yet, I think if he's going to be in just this one 600-word descriptive piece, he needs to be more of a presence there. So, good job.